Oh, hi, it's my favorite science student. Just follow along and press pause as you need to while I explain the structure or parts of a cell and what they do. Remember, cells are the simplest, most basic unit of organisms. They are so small you can only see them with a microscope, and there's several different types of cells. If you are made of just one cell, we say you are unicellular. Multicellular organisms are made of many cells. The two main types of eukaryotic cells, those are cells that have a nucleus with DNA, are the plant cell and the animal cell. Organelles are the parts inside of all cells. They're very small, they have certain jobs, and they're found floating around in the cytoplasm. An example of an organelle would be the lysosomes that digest and get rid of wastes by using acid to break down food and old cell parts. Kind of like your stomach is a bag of acid that breaks down food in your digestive system. Lysosomes also break down bacteria and worn out cell parts. Cell parts later get recycled into new cell parts. How the cell gets food looks something like this. The lysosomes digest the food, breaking down the food into smaller particles that the cell can use, and then any wastes left over are released from the cell. Mitochondrion is another kind of organelle called the powerhouse of the cell. It uses oxygen to change food, mainly glucose, it's a kind of sugar, into cellular energy in the form of ATP. More active cells, like your muscles, have lots and lots of mitochondria, and both plant cells and animal cells have them. And this is where cellular respiration occurs. That's when the mitochondria use oxygen for burning glucose to release its energy. Because it uses so much oxygen, the mitochondria are also known as the lungs of the cell. The oxygen is used to burn glucose sugar to release that energy so that the cell can then use the energy. It doesn't really make the energy, it just changes the energy from the chemical energy in glucose into the chemical energy in ATP. Surrounding all cells is a cell membrane. It lines the cell wall in a plant cell. It's made of protein and fat, those are organic molecules, and it's selectively permeable, which means it's got some spaces where stuff can come in and out. Certain stuff can come in and out. It is also made of organic molecules, and it's a living layer. It's controlling the movement of stuff in and out of the cell. So the stuff that goes in this selectively permeable layer are things like food, water, and oxygen. That's the good stuff going in. And then the bad stuff coming out is mostly waste. There's a cell wall in just plant cells. That's a non-living layer of cellulose, which is that stringy stuff in celery. It gives structure and shape to plant and bacteria cells, but is not found in animal cells. Animals don't need cell walls because animals have bones. The cytoplasm is that ooey gooey jelly-like substance that all the organelles are floating in. It provides a watery place for chemical reactions to occur. This is where those organelles are floating around doing their jobs, like the nucleus. The nucleus is the largest organelle in an animal cell. It controls, it's the boss, it directs all of the activities of the cell because it has the directions, or DNA. DNA forms chromosomes. Chromosomes are divided into genes. This is genetic material. The nucleus has a certain number of chromosomes. Like in your cells, you have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and they control the characteristics through genes. Only plant cells have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are filled with green chlorophyll, and chlorophyll traps sunlight to make sugar, which is kind of food, specifically glucose, in a process called photosynthesis. Remember that only plant cells have chloroplasts, not animal cells. So producers or plants have this chlorophyll that takes in carbon dioxide and water and sunlight to form glucose, a type of sugar, which stores the energy from the sun in its chemical bonds. The cell wall is this dead layer. It's got large empty spaces between the fibers where stuff can easily go in and out of. It's made of cellulose, which is very thin fiber. When they say eat your fiber, they're talking about eating plants, vegetables. The cell wall is strong and rigid. It supports plants to help them stand upright since plants don't have any bones. The cell wall has flat sides that protect and support the cell, keeps too much water from going into the cell, and gives the cell its shape, although plant cells are not always square. The cell membrane is also present in plants. It's just really hard to see in a plant cell because that cell membrane is kind of shoved up against the cell wall. It lines the cell wall kind of like a garbage bag lines the inside of a trash can, and it presses out up against the cell wall to help maintain its shape. This is from turgor pressure. It's water pressure from inside the vacuoles in the cell. Vacuole is a fluid or water-filled sac. The vacuole's job is storage. They don't have vacuoles in animal cells. If they do, they're very, very tiny. In plant cells, they have this huge central vacuole just filled with water every time you water the plant. It's the biggest organelle in a plant cell. It contains cell sap, which is mostly water, but some sugar and proteins and minerals and waste and pigments and stuff. There are different kinds of plant cells. There are guard cells in the leaves of plants, and there are xylem cells in the stems of plants, pollen cells in the flowers of plants. Animal cells, remember, have no cell wall. They don't have any chloroplasts. And animal cells actually come in a wide variety of shapes. Some of them look like donuts, and some of them look like trees, and some are long and skinny. Paramecium is a protist, looks kind of like a shoe. And the amoeba is just like a blob. The similarity between cells of plants and animals are that they both have a cell membrane surrounding the cytoplasm. They both have a nucleus, and they both contain mitochondria. Now, the differences are that animal cells are much smaller than plant cells. Animal cells have all these crazy different shapes. Plant cells pretty much always have flat sides. Animal cells don't have a cell wall. Plant cells do have a cell wall. Animal cells either don't have any vacuoles or they're teeny, teeny, tiny. Plant cells have this huge, large vacuole right there in the middle. Animal cells, of course, have to eat, while plant cells photosynthesize to make their food. Animal cells have a nucleus basically in the middle of the cell, where plant cells' nucleus is kind of shoved up against the cell wall. And that's it. You're done. Whew.